And a good Thursday evening, everybody. Chris McDonald with you. We're so grateful to have you, and we are always blessed, always excited to have this old codger with us. He is an old codger. I call you a lot of other things, none of that can repeat on the air, but this is my good buddy, Brad Johnson, the former CIA operative, former economic advisor to Bernie Madoff, the protector of Elvis, and anything else I can come up with. But friend of Chris McDonald, that's probably of all those things I just named, that's probably worse to him than anything. But seriously, it's good.
Chris McDonald, Bernie Madoff.
Yeah, I know, man. Hey, man, it's good to see you tonight. How you been?
Doing all right, thank you, Chris. How about yourself?
I'm doing well, buddy. It's been a very turbulent time in our country since I've seen you last. We had the assassination of Charlie Kirk. We had the shooting at the school up in Minneapolis, and we've had James Comey indicted. We had Letitia James indicted tonight. But the big news I want to really get your opinion about is this peace deal that has happened in the last 24 to 48 hours between Israel and Hamas, with the help, and a great deal of help, from President Trump, along with nations like Egypt, Qatar. Turkey is involved in this. I understand the UAE has had a hand in it. Jordan has had representatives in this. And I had James on Tuesday night, and he believes that in the past, of course, Hamas can't be trusted, but he does believe, and I'm sure I'm going to get your take on this, it may be similar, that this time is a little different simply because of the Arab nations that are on board. They're basically telling Hamas, you either play by the rules or you're going to be obliterated. And I think that may be the difference this time than other deals when they have claimed they're going to do right. What's your thoughts on that, my buddy?
Yes, I would say there are some differences. That certainly is one, and a very important one. I would also say this too, that I think they're a little bit more limited organization. They were always sort of the B team that's out there in the field, playing around in the Palestinian areas, and they basically have all their eggs in one basket, if you will, and that was Gaza City. So right now, it's not a thing of like, well, they come in, attack a few houses, and go out. Now the plan is that they're going to bulldoze Gaza and move everybody out of there, and there'll be nothing. So that's the plan that the United States and Israel have backed and turn it in. And we've all heard Trump say in the news a bunch of different times that let's turn that into a beach resort. That's a whole beautiful area there. Let's make it nice and put golf courses in and stuff like that. And
Right.
I think he means it. I think that's what they would do ultimately, should they end up moving all the Palestinians out. So for me, that's a big game changer as well. You've got a lot of support lined up among Arab nations where they would always get support out. There's still going to be a few bad players out there. Qatar tends to be a spoiler. I don't know in this particular case where they're at right at the moment, but there are countries out there, Arab countries out there, that are going to probably still support the Palestinians in some way, Hamas and so on. But by and large, they're being told, as you say, play by the rules or you're finished. And they need those other countries because that's where they get their money, and most of their money, and the support that they need for training and equipment and R&R and medical treatment and all those different things. So I think you combine all of those together, and they've been forced to make a deal because otherwise they just wouldn't do it. But the proof is in the pudding. The first thing that has to happen before anything else will happen is the hostages have to be returned, and plus whatever bodies of the ones they've killed, all of that has to be returned. So we'll see if that happens. I think it will. That's the way it looks. So I think that the deadline is Monday. They have to have everything back by Monday. So I suspect that we will see that happen. And then I think we can basically declare victory. Now, a couple of things out of that. Now, this is not some prolonged peace treaty. This is a ceasefire.
Right.
So the Israel has agreed to pull back its troops. It's agreed to a ceasefire as long as it gets the hostages. Okay, so that's where it stands. Now, there's not going to be any question in my mind that should the Palestinians, the Hamas rather, start doing something in Gaza again, like refortifying, rearming, start doing all of those things, that's going to be in violation of the peace treaty. And if that happens, then Israel just go back in. Now Israel's going to go back in though, and it'll have the hostages out. So that's been one of the things is like, the Hamas has been saying, stop it or we're going to kill another hostage sort of thing. So they won't have that leverage to play with. So I think Hamas is, no matter how you slice it, is going to be in a worse position. And I think eventually what will happen, but Hamas is not the type of group that's going to convert into a political party and give up military activities. So what are they going to do? They're going to have to go back and keep doing what they're doing. So there's just no way around the fact that this is going to blow up at some point, be it a month from now or 6 months from now or a year from now. At some point it's going to blow up. So when it blows up, the Israeli army is going to go back in and bulldoze Gaza. I think it's going to end up basically as Trump has said. He said, we'll buy it. We'll buy it. We'll put in a resort and golf course and make it nice. And, we can make that the Riviera, of the area. And there are some beautiful places in those areas. So absolutely, Lebanon was famous, at the turn of the last century, and that period of time for being the Riviera of the area, and is beautiful. I mean, it's all bombed out and destroyed now, but there are places there that have potential to be wonderful. So I think if you just take a look at it from the business aspect, the highest and best use of how to use that land, that would be a far better use. It had more value and more money and bring in a lot of tourism money and stuff like that. It would be a great way to do it. I mean, I invest in real estate myself, so at his heart, Trump is that real estate developer, and that would be the highest and best use of that land. It would be. So I wouldn't mind seeing it happen and let the Palestinians move to some of the other places that would be safer, because then they're not going to be a target of Hamas, because Hamas isn't going to be able to attack Israel from there, and so the people will be safer. I mean, everybody wins.
Everybody
except
wins.
Hamas.
They do. Well, I'm with you 1,000,000%. I do have to ask you this question because this is what I've heard today. Listening to the media, listen even into the right-wing media, and watching X, watching the Twitter feeds, watching the Facebook posts, watching people post. And it seems to me that even there are some on the right that look at this that Israel was the blame for all of this, that it's Israel's fault that this lasted 2 years and not Hamas's. And I totally vehemently disagree with that, because had Israel been let go, I think, under the Biden administration, because we got to remember this started, Joe Biden was president on October the 7th of 2023. Donald Trump wasn't. He took over a year and a half into this, at the beginning of this year. And Israel seemed to be handcuffed, Brad, for almost a year and a half of this. And if America would have suffered the same fate, I mean, I'm sure you've heard the stories and you've heard the analogies that 1,200, Israelis basically equal 44,000 Americans. If this percentage of our population was slaughtered based upon what their percentage was, it's 44,000. The 250 hostages would have been 1,000, 10,000 hostages almost. But the number, the 13,456 injured, man, people forget about all the injuries that people are still recovering from, and the emotional hurt and the emotional loss of families, babies, kids, mothers, daddies. And if Israel would have been allowed to do their job, we would have probably not even been this long into this. But it's just a simple question. How do you rate how Israel's handled herself? I give Bibi Netanyahu an A. I just do. I don't buy into this negativity that Bibi Netanyahu's this evil demon. Because, Brad, I think if any leader other than Joe Biden was put in this same place, I don't think we would have done anything different in this country than what he's done, man. You can't let 44,000 people be slaughtered by an enemy combative within your border and not do something about it. You just can't.
I think it's worth mentioning also the horrific nature of the way they killed a lot of these people, because they were tying mothers and children together alive and throwing them alive into a fire to kill them and things like that. Fire is one of the most painful ways to go, if I understand correctly.
Yes.
And it would have been a horrific thing to do. And it's not like a single incident of it. It was done basically as a rule. That was part of what they had intended to do going in, was a very cruel slaughter, painful slaughter and torture of anyone that they captured. So the horrific nature of it is something that's important too. And it wasn't like the trade building in New York that basically collapsed and everybody was killed instantly. I mean, this was not that type of thing. And there were a lot of people standing around watching who were also prisoners, watching individually them get thrown in one by one, or a mother and child 2 by 2 sort of thing into the fire, knowing that was coming for them. I mean, that's got to be an awfully bad feeling for those people. So I think people tend to forget the horrific nature. And also, this thing where this attack took place during the Biden administration, that was no accident. I mean, that was completely a decision. The Palestinians, the Hamas, had been ready to do this for a long time, and they could have pulled the trigger pretty much any time they wanted it after a certain point, and that point had been achieved well before the attack. So they timed it out and said, well, okay, Biden is losing it. We all know he's going senile. His vice president is an idiot, so they're probably not going to get elected. So we're probably going to have a Republican.
Right.
So now's the time. Let's pull the trigger. Let's go. So I mean, it was a cold hard calculation as to when to do this on the part of Hamas. So then again, as I said, the cruelty that was involved with what they did. So to blame Netanyahu for this, I find that to be, kind of either disingenuous or stupid or really odd.
All the above.
I don't know exactly how to phrase it, because Israel got attacked.
They did.
They didn't go into Gaza, and start killing people. And then also, the people who are in charge of running up the numbers, I hear this a lot. Oh, they killed 40,000 people and all that. Well, who says? Hamas. Hamas is the one that says how many people got killed, and everybody just picks up the number that they give.
I know.
So I would say you could probably cut that number in half and be closer to the truth. But also, here's one of the problems. They'll go into apartment buildings, go up on the roof of an apartment building and set up 3 or 4 mortar installations there and start firing off mortar rounds into housing areas of the Jewish housing areas in Israel. And what do you do? You just let them keep doing that? You can't. So the counter battery fire, it goes back and hits that building where those are set up, and Hamas forces people to stay in there because they want those casualties. So again, Hamas has killed more people, more Palestinians than Israel has. But the problem is, who's keeping track of the numbers, and nobody questions any of this. Now Netanyahu does, but the press is against him. And also, look at the Netanyahu's problem in the sense that you're discussing it in the political realm is that he's a conservative, which is why he gets along with Trump. The opposition there, all the Socialist International guys, like the U.S. reporting here that we have, all of the news agencies in the United States are this left-wing stuff. Europe, it's all left-wing stuff. They all go right to Hamas and just blindly believe whatever numbers they're given. And they have people that have been trying to destroy Netanyahu, very much like people have been trying to destroy Trump for a decade now, and longer in the case of Netanyahu. And they come up with all this stuff that gets thrown out of court, all this stuff, how he steals money from orphans or whatever. And they come up with all these stories against him, just like they do with Trump. Well, but he gets elected there, just like Trump got elected here, because everybody knows it's BS. So these people that buy into that sort of stuff, it's, are they naive? Are they, willing to believe it because they hate Netanyahu no matter what? Just like people here hate Trump no matter what. So, if you say that Trump peed on a bed because Obama slept in it 2 years ago, they're like, oh yeah, he peed on that bed. How stupid is that? Somebody slept in that bed 2 years ago, so I'm going to pee on it. How do you even come up with stuff like that? And that was a Brit, by the way. That was field dossier crap. Only the Brits would think of that. Well, Obama stayed in it, so he peed on the bed. Which, by the way, isn't that the bed he was supposed to sleep on?
I think so. Yeah, that's minor stuff I've heard about you, Johnson. So that's nothing. That's just junior varsity stuff. That's just junior varsity stuff. No, seriously though, you're making some excellent points. Do you feel in any way? And I've got my opinion about this, and I'm happy tonight for these families. I want to go on record because I think people have mistaken my caution for me not being happy that we've got a deal in place to release these hostages. Look, from the hostage family's perspective, Brad, this has been one of the most gut-wrenching 48 months that I don't think any nation, any group of people have ever experienced, short of the Holocaust, to be frank with you, short of the Holocaust of 1938 through 45. And look, to have hope that you're going to get your remains of your loved ones back or your actual living loved ones back, even though there's a small number now. I'm so happy for that. I'm tearfully happy for that. But there is this part of me tonight that I feel like that, and I brought this up with our buddy too Tuesday night, and I'm curious about your take. Is there going to ever be retribution? And I hate to use that word. Let me change that word. Is there ever going to be justice for the dead 1,200 Israelis that, James made a great point Tuesday night. He said this. He said, during Germany's onslaught against the Jews in the Holocaust, where 6 million Jews were just slaughtered in cold blood, he said at least after the war, there was one effort to bring these people to justice, the Nuremberg trials. In other words, they caught the generals, they caught the Nazis they could, and they brought them to trial and hung some of them. Hermann Goring was hung, or he committed suicide, but they hung him, executed him, and dealt with those that perpetrated these acts. I do not see any worldwide stomach to do the same thing to Hamas, and I feel like they are deserving more of this than even the Nazis were. That's just my opinion. I know that's maybe a simplistic view of the world, but it hurts me tonight to know that 1,200 victims are dead, and the world just seems to be cheering and cheering and cheering tonight. And I'm grateful that we're cheering, that the hostages are coming home. But we do not need to forget about those victims. You said it a while ago, and I just sense that this deal was put together in such a way that Israel's long-term interests, and they're being asked tonight just to forget about what happened, and let's rejoice that we've got the hostages back, and we're going to be with you to keep Hamas out of your hair for maybe however long they are before they act up again. I do not like that. And that is just my opinion. And maybe that's a simplistic view of the world. But I feel like that there needs to be something that needs to be addressed with that. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, first I'd like to say that this deal is basically all gravy. It's a big victory, and I think that should not be underestimated. The value of this, because once those hostages are free, you can take that other hand out from behind your back. Now Israel's going to be able to put up both fists to go into the next fight, and so I would say there is going to be a next fight. I don't see this resolving itself peacefully. So with no hostages. It's something where they're going to be able to go into Gaza, just balls to the wall, if you'll forgive the term.
I get it, yeah.
Full speed ahead. So that's one thing. Now, Nuremberg trials, yes, absolutely. I think Nuremberg trials set a standard for the world of what, following orders is not an excuse. Everything didn't, all the horrible things didn't die and go away when Hitler died. You people carried those things out. So a lot of those people did get either committed suicide like Goering or were hung. And there were jail terms for some of the people like Dönitz, the head of the Navy, and different things like that. But also, I would pose this almost as a question. A lot of the Nazis that were involved in this got hunted down, and they didn't make it back to captivity. They just didn't make it. And, they resisted whatever you want to call it. I don't care.
No, I get where you're going.
Does that constitute justice? And in my mind, it does. So they hunted down a lot of those guys and found them, and they, like I said, they just didn't make it back. So is that going to happen to these guys that were involved in planning this Hamas attack? And I would say definitely. All those guys are going to end up dead. They always do all end up dead. All the guys that, when I was back in the agency working against all these terrorist groups and stuff, every single one of those guys that were involved in my day are all dead. They just get killed. It's the nature of the beast of what they're doing. So these Hamas guys, every single one of them is going to end up dead. I would be surprised to see any of them, maybe, but more than one or two survive, say, a 5-year period. I think is very, very unlikely. So does that constitute justice? I mean, now, I grant you, putting them on trial is important and says something for those standards of the world like Nuremberg did. But I would guess for every guy hung in Nuremberg, or there were different places where people were hung.
Right.
They hung some of the concentration camp commanders and stuff at the concentration camps. There were other people hung. But as you take all of those, the guys that sort of got away and escaped and were tracked down later and killed while trying to resist or escape or whatever, there are probably a whole lot more of those guys than there were the ones that were hung. Both, to me, are part of the same overall idea of justice. They both serve justice in my mind. Perhaps that's distasteful to some of your listeners, but
no, it's not
in my mind, it's fine. So, yes, I would love to see that, but if 5 years from now, Hamas essentially no longer really exists as a military movement, where it can go out and conduct terrorist attacks and things like that, that for me is victory. Now, maybe there's no trials, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's the way this is headed. Like I said, they need Gaza City. I don't see how in the long run Gaza City is going to stay in their hands. I think that is where they're going to lose. I think that's why they're desperate now to make this agreement, because they're trying to save Gaza City for themselves. But I don't think that's in the cards. So
I'll agree.
I call that justice.
Good point. No, I think that's a good point. That's why I asked you, and I think you answered that extremely well. I do. I do want to ask you this: why is it that when Jews are killed, like they were slaughtered on October the 7th, that the world tends to go silent in the face of that, but they're always screaming at Palestinians. I saw a poll today, and I'll run this by you. And I got another question after this about the hostage exchange, but I want to talk about this for a minute. The Quinnipiac poll today, they took a poll October the 7th of 2023 in this country, in America, and they said, which side of this conflict do you have the greatest sympathy for? 30%, the poll came back that the Jewish side, in other words, Israel's side, was plus 30 in that poll, whatever that number was, that it came that there was a 30% increase more people that believed that Israel they were sympathetic to Israel, and there's cause in what had happened. They took that same poll just 2 months ago, August 2025. It's now +1 for the Palestinians. They asked Mark Levin about that this morning, and he just looked in the camera. He said that's the most troubling thing about this whole thing to him. And he's a Jew. And he said, look, that's an ideology. And he said, that scares me more than what actually happened on October the 7th, that you've got people in this country, Brad, that even tonight, I got into it with some individual on Facebook today, and they were claiming that, the Jews are the devil, and the typical anti-Semitic garbage that you hear from people. And why is this country blind to this issue? Because let me tell you why it's important. We don't understand, I don't think, do we, that the enemy that did that on October the 7th would do it here in a heartbeat if they could. Because Israel's enemies are our enemies, Brad, are they not?
Yes, I agree completely. And a point I try to make as often as I can is everyone needs to ask themselves this question. Are we here in the United States safer because there's a democratic country of Israel in the Middle East? And if your answer is anything other than a resounding yes, you're not paying attention to the facts. We are safer here because that Israel exists there. So it is something that just selfish reasons for our national security, we're better off with them there as a stable democratic country with a powerful military. So it's kind of a self-destructive thing. And I would say, there's a lot of reasons why this is here. I would say, why we find ourselves kind of in this situation as you outlined it, and the changing numbers and all of that, but the press is one of the huge problems, because you just have this drone of like we were talking about earlier, the press here just blindly listens to whatever Hamas says. Those reports are controlled by Hamas. They just blindly take that on faith. And, I tried doing a couple of interviews with some of the liberal press that's out there, like Politico and stuff like that. We tried to do a good one on all those people that got assassinated at that music festival out in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And, they take everything that they're told by liberals at face value. And anything that's told to them by a conservative or something, they go, well, where's your proof? Well, go get your own effing proof, asshole. You've got a staff of people there, I just, well, God, go do it yourself. But that's the way they do it, and they would, like, for example, I was getting death threats at the time, quite a few, and so I went to the police investigated. They actually were using a phone that had been paid, and it was all out of the Chinese hack of government information, and the police were able to prove all of this because the names and addresses of the people who they were using to buy the phone that they were using to call me were also people that got hacked by the Chinese. So we knew where all this was coming from. I laid all that out for this guy. I said, this is all happening. You can go call Sergeant so-and-so over here at the local sheriff's department. They were the guys that investigated. Go ask them. And this guy that may have been involved in what was going on in this Las Vegas shooting with the shooter, he might have been involved with that guy, said he got death threats. Well, so the reporter from Politico at the end of it just takes that at face value with zero proof, and me saying, go talk to the sheriff who investigated it, who found a lot of evidence about it, go ask him, and he said, I'm lying, even though I offered proof. And the other guy didn't. The other guy's telling the truth, I'm a liar. So, that's just the way the press operates. Rush Limbaugh said it beautifully once. He said, that when you go for an interview with the liberal press is not there to learn anything about you. they're out there to ambush you, and that's the only reason they're doing interviews with you. So that's just that's who and what they are. So we're faced with that out of the press, where they're just constantly droning on about whatever their latest political act is that they're grinding, and they don't care about the truth. They only care about their political perspective. Then I would combine it, and for whatever it's worth, I've got some Ashkenazi blood in me. I'm not a practicing Jew, but I do have some Ashkenazi blood in me, which, if you're Jewish, you may know what that is, you may not. But I have to say, American Jews have this sort of fatalistic streak in them that I find very self-destructive. And I think it's if Judaism is ever destroyed, I think this is going to be the cause of it. A lot of Jews, people don't know this, but a lot of Jews went into the Nazi Party early on in Nazi years. I mean, how did that work out for you guys, huh? You know, all of them ended up dead. And yet they were big supporters of the Nazis. And now here in the United States, Jews are almost uniformly big supporters of the left.
It's a great point.
And yet, who is it that's taking Hamas at face value? Who is it that's anti-Semitic here? It's the universities that are hammering all this stuff. And they're all liberal. All of this is liberal. Yet the Jews remain liberal. So who is defending the Jews here?
Nobody.
Guys like you and me.
I know.
You and I do more for them defending them than they do for themselves.
That's a great
I
point,
find that very self-destructive, and frankly, I find it idiotic. I mean, perfectly idiotic. Why would you be so suicidally self-destructive? But that's what we see. And yet they jumped into bed with the left, and they stay there rather than aligning themselves with the people trying to protect them,
well,
which
that
is the conservative side. So you've got these guys that are being attacked by the left constantly. They're not defending themselves. So what is it you think is going to happen? What is, even when analyzing this, what's your successful end of the story, for you going down that path that way? So I blame those two kind of central core issues, with a lot of other stuff swirling around that too. That just make it worse. So you've got like a perfect storm. And I have watched, if you look back again at World War II, how the Nazis did everything, they were always dehumanizing Jews. So it was easy to kill them because you dehumanized them. So you're getting rid of these nasty creatures that should be gotten rid of. And now today, what does Islam teach? Islam teaches that Jews are pigs and monkeys.
Exactly.
That's what Islam teaches, is that Jews are pigs and monkeys. Now, that is being picked up by the left, and part of why we see all this anti-Semitism out of the left. Well, where are the Jews on this? Why are they not standing up and going, we're not pigs and monkeys, we're human beings, we have human rights, we deserve to live our lives just like you deserve to live your lives? Where are they? And they're not there. And I don't even see, there's no one challenging the Islamic leaders here in the United States. If I had the opportunity in front of a crowd of people with one of the an imam or some leader out of the Islamic movement here in the United States, is to say, you say you're a religion of peace, great. Come up here on the stage with me right now, stand next to me, and proclaim to the crowd that Jews are not pigs and monkeys, that they have every right to live out their life just like you and I have our rights to live out our life. Stand up with me and declare that out loud. Say that right now. And you're not going to get one of them to do it, because that would go against the teachings of Islam. And they're imams, they can't do it. So people need to put the realistic hat on and take a look at the facts of these situations, and they just don't. And who's up there saying it? The only people I hear say stuff like this are the former terrorists that have left that and are now trying to fight against terrorism. Those are the guys that you hear say this stuff, and nobody else seems to. It doesn't come out in the press very often.
Yeah.
Talk shows like this. I mean, nothing I'm saying isn't anything here that can't easily be confirmed. It's all that is out there to be seen. You just have to look and care to find out. But
that is absolutely one of the best analogies of this. I'm serious. I'm not saying that just because you're my buddy. I think that you've just unlocked it. It makes perfect sense, and it's sad because it reminds me, in some degree, of, if you study history, of the Jews that refused to believe the Germans would do this to them. They refused to believe Hitler would kill them. And they stayed, and they stayed, and they stayed until it got so bad they couldn't leave. And I think that this is what brings me to my next question. I know why they did it. and I know the value of life to the Israeli government. This is what I couldn't explain to this idiot today, and Lord forgive me for calling him an idiot, but that's being kind. No, it's just the stuff that they were saying. I wanted to say a lot more, but they couldn't understand what I was saying is that one Israeli life, Brad, is more valuable to Israel than 2,000 Hamas terrorists. Hamas throws this number out. You've got an exchange tonight for 48 bodies, basically 28 dead, 20 living human beings, and not all of them are even Jewish. Some of them are from different countries, but those hostages are mainly Jewish. Israel is willing, and this is what they're agreeing to give up 2,000 terrorist combatants, 250 of which are in jails with death sentences on them that have committed death penalty crimes, because Israel values life. And to them, one life is worth giving up 2,000 terrorists for, whereas Hamas would kill you in a second and not give two bit pins about any life, including children and babies, who they butchered, and now, like you said, who they put their moms and babies, tied it up and threw them into the fire together. And do you think this is going to come back to haunt Israel if they're giving up all of these terrorists? They do it all the time. Every land deal, every deal that Israel makes with her enemies, she always gives back the people that perpetrated the greatest evil against her. And I know why they're doing it. I'm not trying to say they've got any other option here. I get why they're doing it. But is it going into what you just said? Is this self-destructive? Because, Brad, you know and I know. Look, we're not going to have Trump but just 3 more years, buddy. If you get another Biden in here, you get another Democrat, and they just unshackle the Middle East again, and they unshackle Hamas, and they unshackle these people, give the Iranians money back again, my God, they got 2,000 foot soldiers back on the trail, man, that they didn't have before tonight. I know that's maybe not common wisdom out there, but I think it plays into what you just said, because I've never known a deal that Israel's made with her enemies that she don't give more than she should. I get why they're doing it. I do, because I'm the same way. For one life, I'd be willing to give the world for, man. That's Israel. That's the difference in the Middle East of their ideology and the ideology of death in the Arab world. What's your take on that?
I don't view this as a weakness or a negative thing. I would, my worldview is a little different because I've been on the ground on so many of these different things. A lot of these were during violent times, and we didn't get called them wars when we were doing it. They were called, I don't know, confrontations or whatever. But I'd answer your question with this observation. In those past times, when they've given up 1,000 to get 10 back, or whatever they've done, 10 of their soldiers back, and I agree, the individual Israeli soldier is worth way more than the individual Hamas, grunt that they've got out there. How many of those guys do you think got recaptured?
Probably a ton. Probably a ton.
No, they all got shot.
Yeah.
Because you don't recapture them the second time. So all those guys get killed. That's kind of what I was saying earlier. All those guys they get back are going to be dead because they're not going to go away. They're not going to stop fighting. They're not going to go, become a male nurse in a hospital or something, or a car mechanic and give all this up. Maybe when they're 60 years old or something they might, but in the meantime, they're all going to go back to fighting. So they're all going to get back in there, and they're all going to get themselves killed. And, they know who these people are. It's a small area. And you know these individuals, and so you see it so-and-so, it's like, okay, surrender. That's a couple of shells through the chest, one through the head, and then you find out if they want to surrender. That's going to be how this will be played out. So those guys are all going to end up dead. I mean, that's maybe harsh to a lot of people, but that's how this works. You get them back, but guys, don't get caught again because you're not going to survive the experience. That's the ground truth.
So what I'm hearing, and I agree with you, you think it's strategic then, because they're good and well knowing, and we sort of talked about this before the show come on. It's about like Trump telling Iran, we're going to give you 30 days to come to the table, and the next night there's a hole in Tehran the size of freaking Texas because Trump bombed their nuclear facilities the next day. So I wouldn't put it past Trump, and I wouldn't put it past Bibi, that on the surface this may look like an equitable exchange. But like you said, maybe there is a plan on the table that they call it the virgin meeting in the sky. I'll just leave it at that. Or maybe we're having another pager event that the sales at the T-Mobile pager company might go up in the next, or the sales may plummet. I should say it won't be going up, but the stock on T-Mobile and all the pager companies are going to go start going down in the Middle East again.
Who uses pagers anyway?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still laughing at that, what Israel did with the pagers, man. I get it. A couple of questions. Folks, if you got a question for Brad, we're so glad to have my buddy tonight. You just don't know how much I appreciate him. I really mean that. If you got a question for him, go ahead and put it in the house while we got him tonight. Do you trust the other players in this? Egypt, Turkey, Qatar, UAE, Jordan. Our dear Cleo's in the house tonight. I told her, our dear friend, cherished friend, and I told her this day, I said, none of these players, in my opinion, any deal they're constructing, look, when you get down to it, I guess it's just perspective. Maybe some people believe this, some people don't. I do not believe there's any love loss between any of those Arab nations and Israel. I don't care what they're saying with their mouth. I don't care what they're saying out there in the public. Deep down, they're controlled by the same religion that controlled Hamas. Some of them are not acting on their religion, but it's the same thread. Do you trust them to be doing this in the best interest of Israel? Or are they doing it for Hamas? Are they doing it for themselves? Or is there a combination of all of that? And maybe there is some humanity in these nations that see what's happened over the last 2 years for both Israel and Hamas, and they're truly dealing in good faith. And I know that's an opinion question, and maybe me or you neither one know that, but what's your thoughts on that?
I guess my immediate question would be, has any treaty ever been done anywhere ever in the history of mankind that was like totally above board and completely honest just for the goodness of mankind? And
no.
Answer's probably no. So there's always more going on underneath it. And would I trust these guys? I mean, like, Erdogan in Turkey is somebody who's definitely out for himself. He wants to reestablish, the Ottoman Empire to some degree. He's working towards that. That's his worldview of himself, how he sees his role. So how trustworthy is he? Well, he's trustworthy as long as it serves his purpose. But beyond that, it's nothing done based on a humanity thing. On the other end of the scale, you've got guys like the King of Jordan, who's a cut above most of that, and he actually has probably is a descendant of Muhammad and things like that. He could have been much more aggressive in the history of the Arab lands out there by claiming that status and trying to take on a much larger role, but he hasn't. And so he's made a much more stable country, more wealthy, for the individuals, a much larger middle class, all those sorts of things. So you've got a much more stable guy there, which, now granted, is there love loss between him and Israel? Probably not. But on the other side of the coin, he also knows where his bread is buttered. And he sees it, he sees it that this is a better deal, than lining up with Hamas or something like that. Plus, let's not forget, they drowned one of his pilots on TV and things like that, and he wasn't too happy about that. He was a pilot, as most people may know about the King of Jordan, and so he felt a lot of affinity to that guy. And he probably knew that person because I don't think that many pilots in the Jordanian Air Force. I mean, compared to the U.S. or something. So I imagine most of them knew each other. So I think he took that very personally, and I think it was intended to insult him personally too. So. I would say you can kind of look at those sorts of, extremes, and if you look at the Saudis, the royal family has always been in sort of a tenuous position. They claim to be the descendants of Muhammad. They're probably not. Hopefully they won't hear this and hate me for it, but they have their claims, and so
I don't think the Saudis listen.
I have to say the King of Jordan's probably got a lot more direct claim than they do. But
I'll just say, if the Saudis are listening to this program tonight, you pay your tithes to P.O. Box 269. I'm just sorry. Go ahead.
Well, don't tell all of us, you'll piss them off.
Yeah, don't kill all of us, please. Go ahead. Keep going.
So I mean, there's just this mix of all this stuff going on, and the interrelations between them, and there's a lot of things, going on behind the scenes of family members that have, married the sister of this other guy and then divorced her and dumped her and treated her badly and didn't treat the kids right, and all of those things are going on behind the scenes that we don't know about that piss them off against each other, and so there's always all this. Just anything you can think of is going on in the background at the same time out of all of this. I digress for a moment, but everyone probably has heard of Lawrence of Arabia, but they probably don't know. He wrote a book, his Pillars of Faith. I read his book and quite a little bit about him. He was an interesting character, but what they don't realize, the movie had almost nothing to do with the real life man. When his real value was that he spoke perfect idiomatic Arabic, and in that, they show him being this great guy in all these meetings with the generals and kings and making all these decisions and declaring this and that and all that sort of stuff. Well, in real life, he was sitting out in the parking lot, but he would take cigarettes and coffee and stuff like that to all the drivers because he wasn't included in any of the meetings. He was only a sergeant, and so he was basically a nobody as far as the British military went, and. But he would sit around with all the drivers and bring them cigarettes and coffee, so they would sit around and gossip with him.
Yeah.
So his real value was he knew everything about everybody. He knew who was pissed at who was not going to make a deal with who would make a deal with who. He knew all that stuff because he sat around and talked to these drivers that knew everything. So we don't even go after that information anymore, which is a pity because it would be useful to have, but the point being out of all of that is there's just skullduggery going on around behind the scenes. They're trying to kill each other or steal their wife or, beat up their kid or marry the daughter of the other guy or, who knows what. But that stuff goes on all the time. So it's an ever-shifting thing, and you can never count on anything lasting forever. But right now, I think it's a perfect storm. We've got everything lined up. People see that, as I said earlier, where the bread is buttered. And, Egypt is a big country. They don't really want wars anymore. They've got enough of their own problems. And Egypt is the big population right there in the Middle East. Turkey's kind of on the edge, sort of a separate thing. But, you can't do anything without Egypt in a major way.
That's
because they're the big boy at the table.
That's very true.
So anyway, it's a mess, but it's a mess that's worked out for the moment. So,
sounds good.
Herding goats.
Got a couple of questions for you that's coming in, and I want to read one of them. Before I get to this question, I want to ask you about President Trump. Nobel Peace Prize is going to be announced tomorrow. Trump's Trump. I've come to understand his ego. He's taken a lot of victory laps on this, as he probably should. He's done a lot of work, him and Marco Rubio. I'm very proud of Marco Rubio. I think we got the best Secretary of State we've ever had in Marco Rubio. I really do. That's my opinion. But how much does this lay at President Trump's feet of his work behind the scenes? Do you think that he put enough pressure on Hamas more than he did Israel, vice versa? Did he apply the right pressure to both sides? Was there anything that you saw that maybe you'd have done differently than what he's done to handle this? And look, you can't argue with the results. This is the 8th conflict that he has literally in 9 months. The UN has been trying to solve these conflicts for 35, 40 years, bro. Trump comes in 9 months. You've got Uzbekistan and Armenia stop fighting. The Congo stop fighting. You've got India and Pakistan friends almost now. I mean, the list could go on. Rwanda and the Congo, I think. I was in Africa several years ago, and that continent is ripe with just nothing but civil strife. And he has literally brought these people to D.C. and said, stop this mess, knock it off, get along. And they have, Brad. And look, you got to give the man the tip of the hat. I'll put it like this. If he don't get that Nobel Peace Prize tomorrow, that they need to stop giving it away. That's just my opinion. I think President Trump deserves a lot of credit. I don't agree with every little jot and tittle of how he's handled this, and I've got my reasons, but for the most part, I do give him an A in his effort to at least to try to stop these useless killings on this earth. That I salute in a million ways. That's the right thing, and I'm grateful we got a president that cares about life. He cares about people living and not dying.
Agreed. I don't think he'll get it, but I think he's earned it and deserves it. But I don't think he'll get it just because the Nobel institution is so left wing, nutsoid. I mean, they gave Obama the Nobel Peace Prize for showing up to work. And that was it.
That's true.
And got a Nobel Peace Prize for that. That was a travesty. I don't think even after his final day as president he'd done anything to really earn it. But still he had it. So I guess it's a plaque on his wall somewhere at the museum, the presidential museum. But I don't think he'll get it. Would I have done things differently? I would have probably done absolutely everything differently, but I don't know that I would have been more successful.
Yeah.
He's good at negotiating, and this is negotiating, so I think it was an area where it plays to his strength. And as you say, bottom line is bottom line. He's got them all at the table, and if it gets those hostages back, excuse me, and then you got to say it was successfully done. So I would say, all in all, you've got to give credit where credit's due to President Trump, and all those things that you listed off have been handled well, and I agree with you. He cares about this stuff. We haven't really had that many people that really care about what goes on in Africa, and they slaughter each other all the time. Everybody kind of shrugs and goes, "Well, whatever, it's just Africa." But this is a guy that actually tries to do something. And by the way, I think we should mention James Comey before we.
I want to talk about him. I do. Before we finish, I'm going to move on to Comey. I got one question about this. We're going to move to Comey then, and I'll keep you about 10 more minutes. You ain't got your cookies and milk out yet for bed, have you? Elvis still awake back there. Stephen finally asked a question about special forces being sent to Gaza. There was a breaking story tonight, right before I came on, out of Just the News, John Solomon's outfit, that Trump has already announced that 200 U.S. soldiers are going to the Middle East with him Sunday, and they are going to serve as a peacekeeping force. Good move or bad move? Or do you think we should keep the boots on the ground out of there, or do you think it's necessary? Do you think that is probably a necessary part of this peace deal too, to show force that the United States is behind Israel and we're not going to let Hamas do this crap?
I wouldn't be surprised if that was one of the trip lines that they had to negotiate in this thing, because Hamas isn't going to want Israeli soldiers in certain areas, and Israel's going to insist on having soldiers in those areas. So I think this is probably a compromise solution. It's dangerous. If Hamas kills some U.S. soldiers, then I would say all bets are off.
All bets are off, man.
Yeah.
When I saw that tonight, that was my first thought. Honestly, when I saw that story, my first thought was that would be the game changer, I think. If there's U.S. blood shed in the Middle East, God help Hamas and God help this whole thing. I think this turns a different direction. Good question. All right. I think we've discussed that pretty thoroughly tonight. I do want to talk about the other big story, a couple of big stories, but I do want to deal with Comey, because Comey's with the FBI, and you're aware of those circles. Are we finally going to see justice for some of these players that did some horrible, horrible things to conservatives and right-wing people? Letitia James gets indicted tonight for basically committing fraud with records to a bank. It sounds almost like what she charged Trump with. When you talking about reaping what you're sowing and getting judged for what you're judging others for, man, this is getting real. But Comey, I think, is in trouble. I'm not so sure they're going to be able to prove Letitia's situation, but Comey, I think, has got some issues and trouble in the courts. What do you think?
Letitia James, I don't know about. I haven't had a chance to study that. Unfortunately, Comey's not in any trouble. He's going to walk out of this. This is probably going to be summarily dismissed by the judge. Everything about the way this is done was wrong. I mean, it's just thing after thing after thing. The lady who's the state's attorney in this case, or she's federal, but she's the prosecuting attorney in this case, is not someone that she's only ever had one trial. and doesn't have a criminal trial background. She just isn't familiar with all this stuff, and it's a lot. Lawyers are highly specialized. Trial attorneys, criminal trial attorneys are one thing, and if you're in real estate law or whatever, it's just so completely different. Civil law and criminal law are different, and the procedures are different. Everything is different, and she's woefully unprepared for this. This was a horrible way that they've gone forward. Now, let me say first, because I know people get pissed at me sometimes depending on how I phrase these things. James Comey is a scumbag. I view him as a traitor to the United States of America.
Totally.
So let's start with that.
Totally.
And what he did with the FISA warrants and all that stuff, where he was involved in steal dossier and all those things to set up Trump and surveil him as a candidate and then 3 more times as president, that makes him a traitor to the United States of America, in my opinion. He deserves to spend the rest of his life in jail. However, I blame Bill Barr for the fact that he was never prosecuted for any of those things, nor was anybody else. I blame Bill Barr for that. That had to take place during Trump's first administration, and it did not. There's a 5-year statute of limitations on those things, so he's safe on all that stuff that he did that he should have gone to jail for. Now that brings us to this, where he supposedly lied to Congress. Nobody's ever been convicted under that law, I don't think. I don't know that anybody's ever been prosecuted under those laws. It's an extremely weak case. None of the prosecutors that are professional prosecutors were going to sign it. For the indictment, they went before the committee there to get this indictment, and they even turned down one of the charges because it was so crappy. And I'm not saying this is a good thing or I'm happy about it, but these are the facts. And it's just just for example, one of the things is the attorneys for Comey said, "Yeah, Judge, we're ready to go to trial right now. We've got 5 motions to dismiss that we want to give to you, and we're ready to go to trial today. We can start immediately. We want to fast track all this. We want to go straight to trial." And so Judge goes, "Yep, okay," and looks at the prosecutor and says to this lady, "Yeah, okay, you ready to go to trial?" She goes, "Well, Judge, no, a lot of this stuff is classified. We have to get the approvals for that." And so, well, under criminal law, all that had to be done before you go to indictment.
So they should have been ready.
That she didn't know that. I mean, you look at something like that and go, "Oh my God," So now, under the law, she's got 30 days to try and get all that done. Now, another thing, see, if she hadn't done that already, what did she use in when she was going through the indictment process? Was she showing them classified documents? Because if she did that, then she broke the law. She was providing classified documents to somebody she shouldn't have. So, I mean, you just look at this stuff, and I mean, it's just a horrible, unfortunate incompetence on her part based on a complete lack of experience. The previous guy in her position was a very experienced guy. He went to Trump and said, "Look, don't do this. This isn't going to work. Don't do it." He said, "I want it done." He said, "Look, okay, I'm your man. I'm a loyalist. But I'm not going to do this because it won't work. And so, I'll step aside. I'll gladly resign if this is what you want to do. You bring in your own person to do this for you, but I won't do it." And he did resign, and he wrote a beautiful resignation letter saying, I'm your biggest supporter and want to help in any way I can, and if that means me stepping aside so you can put the person that's more closely aligned with your wishes in this position, then I'll gladly do so. Thank you, Mr. President, for the opportunity to serve. That kind of thing. That was this guy. He was on the president's side, but the president didn't listen to him. And so he brought in this lady. She's now made this horrible mistake. And you watch, this is going to, now here's one of the other problems out of this. This case is going to get dismissed. What happens then? That means he can never be charged with a similar crime ever again. Because then it's double jeopardy.
Yep.
So he's basically got a get out of jail free card for the rest of his life now. And the case is going to get dismissed. 99% of chance that it's going to get dismissed anyway. And then what? Then this lady is probably going to get disbarred and lose her law license for this spurious case. I don't know. I mean, it's just a disaster. And I'm like I said, James Comey for me is a traitor to the United States of America. The things he did, he should have absolutely gone to jail for the rest of his life and be Bubba's bitch in jail.
Yep.
That's what should have happened to him. But this is not going to help. It's not going to fix it. It's going to make it worse. It's not better.
You know
it's
what?
really massively stupid.
You know what it reminds me of? You remember the night we had dinner in D.C., night after the December 12th Stop the Steal event, and you sit there and told me how shabbily the cases had been put together for the election fraud by Giuliani, by Sidney Powell, by other lawyers, and you told me that night at the table, you said this is a crap show and there's no dragon. What was her famous saying? We're going to release the Kraken, and you laughed me off the table in the restaurant. You said there's no Kraken coming. This is the most crap shoot you've ever seen. It reminds me of that sort of stuff that we were all told that there was justice coming, and you told me that these cases were so flimsily put together that any judge was laughing. Judges were laughing these people out of the courtroom, and that really disturbs me, Brad, because I mean, and I think that look, I'm with you. He is a scumbag. He's traitorous. He has done some horrible things, and I do believe that was a threat to Trump. What he did in that picture, I believe that was basically a threat to Trump's life. But when you see this kind of stuff, this is what drives us on the right and drives conservatives so crazy with our government. Our side, not the left, but our side. We've got the right argument, but it's like we're playing. It's like it's a game, and it's like we don't bring our A game to these things, and we get our blanks kicked, and then everybody's got an excuse, and then the conspiracy theories start, and this one got paid off, and that one got paid off, and this didn't happen because of this, and that didn't happen because of that. When nobody's doing their job, this when it gets down to it, they're not doing their job. And now, quick question: was Trump right in pursuing this, or would he have been better served not to even go after Comey at all and let this pass, even though there was some bad blood between the two of them?
Well, the worst thing is what he did here. I mean, that's the worst scenario, I guess, out of all of this. I'm not saying he shouldn't have gone after Comey, but he should have gone after Comey with some stuff that had teeth in it, that was real, that he could have gotten a conviction for, and he should have handled it right, should have had the right attorneys working on the case, and he did not. The young lady, the woman that's there, her background is like civil law and other things. It's just like I said, she's in a world that she's ill-prepared for, like that thing I mentioned earlier, where, we're ready to go to trial, judge, the defense attorney, and judge says, let's go to trial, you got 30 days, we gotta get this done, and she says, well, I can't, I haven't gotten all the classified documents approved yet, and he said, well, you're required by law to do that prior to getting the indictment, not after the indictment, and that was when she goes, she just, the defense attorney is a top-notch guy. The judge knows what he's doing, and this lady, unfortunately, just is clueless. So it's just a bad case done wrong, and it's going to blow up in their face. And by the way, you mentioned Giuliani. Giuliani got disbarred. Why did he get disbarred? For doing this exact thing. He claimed he had all this stuff and went to court and was doing all these things. It all turned out to be spurious things, and he got disbarred. That's why I say this lady's going to end up getting disbarred, because that's what happened to Giuliani. She's just, put her neck in the noose out of all of this deal.
Will we see justice on any of these players? Because, Brad, they're going to do it again. If they get back in power, man, they're going to do every bit of this again. They're going to do it.
I just don't know. I mean, you see them close ranks a little bit on some of this stuff. I just don't know. Here's the solution, though. I can tell you what needs to be done, and please, God, take this message straight to Trump's ears somehow through this show. Trump trusted last time around in his first administration the Federalist Society, and the Federalist Society did a pretty good job for him. Were they 100%? No, but what is, right? So they were in that 80-90% range. And they helped put the list together of who became our Supreme Court justices, and they hit it out of the park. Is the Supreme Court perfect? No, but good God, I mean, Trump is winning many of these cases, and we're starting to see more and more respect for the law of the land. And there's going to be some landmark cases. Like now, these justices are looking and saying, "Well, you states are making laws about voting that is in conflict with the Constitution of the United States. And boys and girls, the law of the land is the Constitution, not your state laws. So if they're in conflict, change your state law, because the Constitution is going to be the rules." That is probably going to mean that they have to get rid of a lot of this gerrymandering that's going on out there to create these special districts for black districts and things like that they've been doing. But that's not to create black congressmen. It's to create Democrats who happen to be black. So it's a big difference, and all that's going to be got rid of. If they get rid of that, you'll probably see a 15 or 20 seat swing in the House. That's a big deal. You may see, I don't think more, but you may see a little bit less, maybe 10 or 12, but I wouldn't be surprised at all to see 15 to 20. That's a very big deal. That is what the Supreme Court's doing right now, and those are the guys that Trump put in there. That's a huge victory. A lot of the lower court judges below the Supreme Court, but still senior judges, are really good guys. There's some really good ones in there. A lot of that came out of the Federalist Society. The Federalist Society did a good job. Like I said, were they perfect? No, but they did a great job for Trump last time around. This time around, Trump has shut them out. And what has happened? He just F's up case after case after case of this nation, because he hasn't gotten the right people. And when he does get the right people, he fires them, which, you gotta listen to the experts sometimes on this stuff. And even if they can't do what you want, it's not because they don't want to, it's because that's the law.
Yeah.
So they're gonna follow the law. So find a different way. You want to go after Coney? I don't know what options there are, but this ain't it.
This
is wrong.
Fair enough.
This is going to blow up in their face. And I guarantee you, this will blow up in their face. To your listeners, I'm so sorry to have to say it, but this isn't going to work.
Okay.
I wish it would. But maybe Coney is guilty of something else they could go after. But now,
it's going to make it harder.
Dismissed with,
it's going to make it harder.
Prejudice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can't go after him again then, because it's double jeopardy. So it's just, oh my God, if you're going to do anything wrong, if Comey designed a case to help him, this would be it. Because this is all in Comey's favor.
That's why he's so
Nothing to us any good.
Well, that's one reason he's so cocky and so arrogant about it.
Yeah.
And Carol Smith had a question. Buddy, good to see you tonight. You didn't have to retract it. It was a good question. If Trump don't get the Peace Prize, who do you think may get it tomorrow? Any idea who might pull that off? I know Brad Johnson's in the running. I mean, he makes peace with everybody before he,
Yeah.
You make peace. You make them have peace with their maker, but you do. You make peace with everybody, right, Johnson?
I do. I have several theories about that sort of thing. There's like the smoking hole in the ground theory. There's no problems that come from a smoking hole in the ground. You convert whatever your problem is into a smoking hole in the ground, and your problem is solved. See, that's peace.
That's peace. No, that's peace, man. Well, listen, we're out of time tonight. I'm going to try to get you on next week because I want to talk to you about this National Guard situation in Chicago, Portland, and these cities that this lawlessness, go back to this lawlessness, because I really want to get your opinion about that. I'm out of time tonight. Maybe next week or the next, sometime this month, we'll get you on again, okay? Mm-hmm. And I do want to ask you one quick question from me. Do you think, is there any reason why we have not gotten to the bottom, and I have to make this a quick answer, the assassination of the attempt of assassination of Trump, and now the assassination of Charlie Kirk? I'm afraid that conservatives are entering into a time, Brad, that we are in great danger for expressing our ideas publicly and being in public venues. But what frustrates a lot of people, and what I'm getting a lot of, is that because it goes back to the handling of the Comey case, there is something about our Justice Department that they just botch this crap up all the time, and all it does is lead to all this conspiracy talk and all this crap and all this stuff that people surmise. Is there anything that you believe that we've not been told about those assassinations, and as far as Trump goes, especially. I miss, I hate what happened to Charlie Kirk, but I don't believe we've got to the bottom of Butler, Pennsylvania still. There are still so many questions out there about that day that there's really never been accountability for that day, and there needs to be, because I don't think that kid no more acted alone than I'm young and good looking and rich.
Well, I'll save my comments about you.
Don't comment on that, Mark Johnson, but go ahead.
I just don't know on that kid. I would be, in many of the cases that are out there, I mean, the Las Vegas shooting and the assassination attempt against Trump, and the one at the golf course, and the one where they winged him in the air and all of that. I think there's a lot of unanswered questions about those. The Charlie Kirk one, I don't know. I would kind of lean towards taking it at face value in that particular case, because that kid was fairly twisted kid.
He was messed up.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So you've got conspiracies, and then you got crazy people, and and you got terrorists and stuff. So terrorists are part of an organization. The wacky groups like Antifa and stuff. They're out doing these conspiracies, but you got the wackies that you got to be careful of too. They like Hinckley, they killed John Lennon and stuff. I mean, there's nut jobs out there that do stuff because they're just crazy.
Let's just say that we have got some crazies. I think that this idea, I have never seen a more insane bunch of human beings on this earth since the last year. Even since Trump's been in office, it's nonstop, and the theories and the Jews killed Kirk, and aliens are invading the earth and all this stuff. And I know it's extreme, but Brad, I worry about our country for this reason. I'm going to wrap it up on this. I worry about our country. I worry about our voters, because these are people that are voting. Okay, these people are the ones we go to the polls, they have to vote. And I worry about our mentality. I worry about that poll that it goes from 30 plus on the side of Israel in 23, and now tonight, just 2 months ago, that the sympathies of this nation were with the terrorists. That should concern us, because that is the future of that's the trajectory we're on. That don't bode well for us, buddy. I'll let you wrap us up. Final thought, and I'll say goodnight to you.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, here in the United States, I put a lot of the onus on the press for all that, the liberal media that we all talk about quite a little bit, because it's just a constant feed of misinformation and disinformation. I mean, I almost hate to use those terms because they've been so abused in so many ways, but that's really it. I would like to see more done to combat that. Fox News, if anything, has kind of gone the other way. They're not. They're becoming more liberal. There's a lot of liberal people on Fox News. I mean, there are a few conservatives too. But if you look at who does the actual news, which ends at like 5 o'clock, and then you have the opinion piece people come on, which they're that's not a news program per se. Those are opinion pieces that come on, like Hannity, for example.
Right.
One conservative, he's promoting conservative values because he's that's what he does. That's his show. But if you look at the news people that are on there and they decide what gets reported and all that, most of those guys on Fox News are liberal now. So, yeah, we've seen a little bit go on with X, and things like that have changed a bit. And there seems to be a few changes going on at YouTube. But my channel got yanked. I can't go on there. And, I lost, tens of thousands of followers on that. And anything I try to put up, they'll just shut it right down again, And, I'm not calling for violence in the streets or anything like that. You can have Antifa on there. They call for violence on the streets, and nothing happens to them on YouTube. It's a upside down world in so many ways, but that's how media is today, and the mainstream media. So how that gets fixed, I don't know. But I wish we had more conservatives that were out there that would be willing to buy into to some of the like the Washington Post or something like that, and take it over and turn it into a real newspaper, or the New York Times, and turn it into a real newspaper where it prints out the actual news instead of promoting liberal ideals and things like that. But
It's good.
Carry on.
Good discussion tonight, man. Really good. And again, there's so much that's happened since I've talked to you last, so I'm going to try to get you on a lot sooner because I do want to talk about this lawlessness in our country and from your perspective and about the National Guard. And I think you brought some very good points to the table about Call Me Tonight, and I think it should temper our expectations about what's going to happen because I don't see anything of consequence coming from that. Letitia James, I guess we'll have to wait and see. Listen, I hope you have a good night, and I'll see you again soon. Thank you so much, and our prayers for your family. And, I'll see you soon. We'll be up north soon, and I'll holler at you, and we'll have that steak dinner, okay? And
All right, look forward to it.
Bless you, Brad. Have a good night. Brad Johnson, everybody.
Thanks,
intelreform.org, right? You still got your website?
That's
Still intelreform.org, and visit his website. Great information. Dear friend, and God bless, friend. Have a good night. Brad Johnson, everybody.
Thanks,
Put some fire in that house for him. We're grateful for him. And we're not going to keep you much longer tonight because we're going to have a second guest tonight coming on later. And I hope you enjoyed that tonight. That's some good stuff. That was good stuff tonight. And grateful. Good to see everybody in the house and Facebook and the land of YouTube tonight. Couple of statements. Let's see. Corey Aguilar says, I'm disgusted with the New York Times article. So concerned with Hamas getting the short end of the stick in this peace deal. Corey, I'm sharing that disgust with you, but I'm not surprised by it. I'm surprised they didn't say more than that. I'm with you. It is pathetic. It really is. Jenny, Dennis Floyd says, indictment, such a useless word. She will get a liberal judge to wake me up when there becomes a conviction. Letitia James, I'm Genesee referring to. I don't doubt that. Same thing would call me. Elaine Willard's got a good point. She says, if you don't practice federal law, don't get into the ring because you will get a complete knockout. That's very true, Elaine. And I think it's what Brad was trying to say tonight. They're sending junior varsity players to fight a varsity baseball game or a game, and it's not going to work. Good deal. A lot of good folks over on Facebook tonight, over on YouTube. Good stuff. Carol, good to see you, buddy. Stephen, Susan, Mary, good to see. Cleo was in the house earlier tonight. Good to see her. She was talking about the Syrian leader, that he was not elected. He will assume power, and that he did. It's been 89-11. There's 11% of you out there tonight, out of 56 votes or so, roughly, that do not believe that President Trump should get the Nobel Peace Prize. Now, I'm going to ask the same question that Carol asked. If Trump don't deserve it, you want to put some names in the House, those of you that don't believe he deserves it, who do you think should get it? I would be more than happy to hear your opinion about that. We'll pick that up tonight. We're going to probably come back on tonight. If we don't do it, we'll have Gadon, Ariel tomorrow night. We may save his interview for tomorrow night. Depends on how we feel here after the show. I tell you what, folks, it's been a riveting. I'm going to just say this. I normally do this at the beginning of the show, but usually when we have a guest, I save it till the end. I still am very troubled by all of this tonight. There's certain parts of me that are very thrilled. I have watched the media today. Corey, to your point, I feel like that all the news media has been doing the same thing. That there has been sympathies today that they're framing this as almost as if Hamas won this. Is that now, because of President Trump, Israel has stopped the war in Gaza. And the way they should be phrasing it is that Hamas started this war and that Israel was not allowed to finish it. And because of pressure from the Arab world, America pressured Israel to not destroy Hamas and basically put him into the Mediterranean Sea. And even though I personally did not disagree with Israel's strike on Qatar, President Trump did. And President Trump didn't condemn Qatar for having Hamas leadership in its country. He condemned Israel for that. And that's when I understand what I was listening to it today, that was the catalyst for Trump going to Bibi and saying, you've got to bring this to an end. And that is where we've got this 21 point peace deal. And of course, Hamas, there's a lot of restrictions that are going to be placed on Hamas, but it all starts with these hostages. And there are some good things that have been done. And the hope that I saw today in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem and in other cities in Israel, the tears and the laughter and the joy that is returned to the nation because the hostages are coming home. I don't think you can put a price tag on that. What I posted today was basically saying that one Israeli life, again, to the Israelis, is more valuable. They're willing to give up the entire world for one. Whereas the Arabs, they don't care. It's just like Brad said tonight, Hamas has killed just as many Gazan people probably as they have Israelis. They don't care about the Gazan people. They rule the Gazans. I've got a little different take on that. The Gazans chose that leadership. They chose Hamas to run them. And a lot of Gazan people assisted Hamas in the atrocities of October the 7th that don't get talked about a lot. But the Gazan people themselves was just as much involved as Hamas was. And the world, though, the sympathies are not with Israel tonight, still not with Israel tonight. The sympathy is with Hamas. The sympathy is with the Gazans. They think this is a great thing that Israel is no longer able to defend herself. And the media is eating this alive. People on the right are eating it alive. But the media is eating it alive. And I have to say, folks, Trump is taking victory laps tonight. And look, I don't underscore his commitment to peace. I'm with him. Nobody wants war. This situation in Israel, though, is different. And I know people maybe don't feel that way. There's some people that see this way, others that don't. I got family members that don't see it this way. And you've got half the church believing Israel's the great Satan. You got half the church believing that Israel don't mean anything to God anymore. You've got certain people that when you just say the name Bibi Netanyahu, they start putting 666 swastikas, Hitler name, and Bibi's the devil and he's the beast and all this. And Bibi Netanyahu, folks, in my opinion, is a modern-day Winston Churchill. It has been Bibi Netanyahu, nobody else, even President Trump, that has had to withstand a front of war on 8 different fronts. He's had to defend his nation from war on 8 different fronts. 8. And we want to criticize him for the way he executes war against people that try to destroy his country. You talking about insanity? You talking about somebody being mentally meth-induced crazy? You want to talk about somebody full of the devil and being literally controlled by demon spirits in their thinking? Being deranged in their thinking? That we can blame the country that was attacked on October the 7th for the way they executed the self-defense of their country? And we're blaming them tonight, and we're sympathizing with the baby killers, the baby murderers, the rapists, the murderers, the thugs, the suicide bombers? Again, it concerns me that we've got people in this nation that believe that tonight. With a straight face, and they'll tell you that with a straight face and not even blink. And talking and trying to reason with them is impossible. You can't reason with them. You can't. But this is what they believe. And this is what they think. Because their mind is a mind of mush. And it's been fed by CNN and these YouTube channels and the Facebook pages and the Telegram rooms. And I'll be back to my Bible students in the morning. I missed you this morning. Just couldn't make it today. But I tell my Bible students, if we would just read the Bible, get in the Word of God, read the Bible, we'd see what the Bible has to say about this. It says plenty about what's going on tonight. It has the world's answer to everything, and that answer is not man. That answer is the coming King. And that is King Jesus tonight. And until he comes back, these things are going to continue. And I want to just caution every one of you tonight, and I've said it, not to be pessimistic, not to be a killjoy, but even if this ceasefire sticks, and I'm praying to God we get these hostages home, because ultimately, I guess, all my concerns about the deal itself, all my concerns about the inequitable exchange, all my concern about the players of Egypt, Turkey, Qatar, and UAE, and the Saudis, and all this, all of my reservations about the Abraham Accords, which I feel is a paper tiger. I do not believe these Arab nations want peace with Israel no more than Adam's house cat. I don't care what they're saying, folks. They don't want war, but it's not like they want peace with Israel. It's economic, it's strategic to get the U.S. to open the coffers over here and trade with us. It's about tariffs. It's about money. Let me remind you this tonight. What will it profit this country if we make a deal economically and we're economically blessed, but we do it at the sake of betraying our only friend in the Middle East, Israel? What exchange is that going to be for us spiritually? I'll let you chew on that one tonight. America's been doing this kind of crap for nearly 40 years. And we very seldom have gotten away with it in the past, and I will tell you this, we're not going to get away with it now. I know that there is a divergent opinion about a lot of things. But if we can't have moral clarity about what's good and evil, and what terrorism is and what it's not, and who is orchestrating the terrorism and who is not, if we look at what Israel's doing as terrorism and defending its country, we got a greater problem. We got a greater problem than whether Jim Comey's going to go to jail or not. We got a greater problem on who's going to win the Nobel Peace Prize tomorrow. We got a greater problem than who's going to win the Oscars next year, or who's in the front running for Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce's wedding party. But this is what concerns me with our nation tonight. This is what concerns me with the apostate church. It's really what concerns me with church people in general. That our mind is so focused on everything else that don't matter to hill of beans. And we've got a world, folks, that's in chaos tonight, and a world that is headed down a path to Armageddon. It is headed down a path to Armageddon. Now, I know you Pollyanna word of faith people, and you power positive thinking people say, well, you're just being negative, and we don't need to be negative. We need to expect the best. I'm expecting the best. But I also know what's ahead. And I will tell you that any ceasefire and any accord that's signed is not going to be lasting peace. I don't care how it looks on the surface and how wonderful the world applauds it. I got a rule of thumb. And I told James this last night before the show was over, afterwards. I told him before he came on last night late, I said, if CNN is applauding the deal, we got a problem. If the world is applauding this, we got a problem. Because usually when the world applauds it, it means Israel is getting screwed royally. And I'll let you chew on that one tonight. And that's my final thought on this Thursday night. On Thursday night, the 9th day of October, 2025. And we hope that you've enjoyed this. There are a lot of lies out there. And good to see you, Cleo. Thank you, dear, for being back out there tonight. Thank you so much. Good to see you tonight. But folks, that's what concerns me. That's what concerns me. We're in a spiritual fog that we cannot even see clearly. It's like we can't see the lines and the moral clarity. I mean, it's concerning. It's concerning. And I will tell you this tonight. My heart tonight is still broken for the victims of this terrorist attack. And it's like the world is trying to sweep it under the rug tonight and make us and want us to forget about it. We don't need to forget about it. Because it's coming here. It's coming here, sadly. It's not a matter of if. It's always been a matter of when. But you've got a nation tonight that's attention is not on things that matter. It's not. And we're more worried about a Nobel Peace Prize instead of being worried about, is Israel going to be safe in the long term? And I know she's not going to be. And I can tell you without a doubt tonight, this peace initiative, whatever this is that they're calling it, it's really ultimately giving Hamas resurrection power. It's saving their existence, and they do not need to be saved. They do not need to be saved. What they did does not give them the right to exist, because they'll do it again with impunity again if they're given the chance. We've got a chance. Israel had a chance to eradicate this group from the earth, and we stopped them. We did. The United States did, in hopes of a peace deal with this bunch. Now, President Trump may understand all that, and again, maybe this is strategic. Maybe he knows good and well this ain't going to work, so this will give him the green light to turn to Bibi next week and say, do what you got to do, and I'm going to back your play. These 200 soldiers going to the Middle East, it's a game changer. It ups the stakes. If something happens and we have soldiers killed over there in the Middle East, folks, we're in a conflict. It's drawn the United States into this thing militarily. Not good. It's not good. These opinions are mine. These opinions are mine. And I'll leave you with that to chew on tonight. And I will see you back here in the Bible study in the morning. We missed you this morning. We'll see you back here tomorrow night. Now, it's a 10 to 10. I've got an interview that we did today with Gadon Ariel, and I think I'm going to save that for tomorrow night, and we'll do a new show and show some clips and take your questions. I'm going to just give you a chance here. We got a few minutes. It's an hour, right at an hour and 31, so we've been going an hour and a half. Are you with me tonight? Are you with me tonight? If you are, say amen. If you are, say amen. Terry, you're saying look at the UK. Yep. Not just the UK, Terry. Look at Australia. Cleo will tell you. Look at Australia. Look at the UK. Look at Europe. One thing me and Gadon talked about today was the Palestinian state issue. That alone you need to be with us tomorrow night to listen to. It will enlighten you what Israel's thinking about the Palestinian state. For those of you that don't know Gadon Ariel, he is part of the Likud party of Benjamin Netanyahu. That's the conservative party in Israel that supports Netanyahu. And he's got some interesting takes on this. We got Ruth Gudenheim coming next week, and we're working on some other Jewish friends to come on the show, talk about this from a Jewish perspective, from their perspective, hopefully next week. We got Bill Federer coming back, we think, next't. We've got Mark White to be with us Wednesday night, and some other folks. We've got a young lady, Kennedy Wetzel. She is dear friends with Carla Nicole. She's part of the Youth Turning Point group, and she's been fighting for life, fighting against the abortion industry. She's the same part of Carla Nicole's family, somewhat distantly. She's one of the friends, dear friends, and they introduced me to her. And we've got a young lady going to be on fire, and she's going to come talk about her fight for life on the campuses of our countries. And you'll enjoy her. We're going to look forward to having us new guests. And we're going to have some other old guests coming in and a few surprises for you. Of course, some gray-headed dude named Christopher Wayne McDonald will be here too next week. And I'll be here tomorrow night. And we hope that you join us, okay? I probably won't be back on later tonight unless I get the late night bug in me, and that's happened before. I didn't even don the cowboy hat tonight. I'm in a cowboy hat mood, but I may save all my energy for tomorrow night to play some video, talk about this more with you. I want to thank you all for being such a great audience tonight. I want to thank Brad Johnson for being with us. I love you all deeply. Folks, we need to pray for the people of Israel tonight. We need to pray for the Middle East. We need to pray for our president. I in no way want you to go away from this program saying, well, Chris is trashing Trump and he's turned on Trump. I'm not turned on Trump. I believe in what President Trump's doing. I just believe that this is a unique situation. This is not like Uzbekistan or Tasmania or Rwanda or the Congo or Pakistan and India. The reason this is different is Israel is mentioned 2,301 times in the Word of God. And how we handle Israel, folks. You heard me say it 1,000,000 times. Time for 1,000,001. That beautiful flag back there that's basically got two of the most precious nations on it in my heart. I'm an American. I'm not Jewish. I love my nation. I love America. I was born here. This is my nation. But I'm a Bible-believing Christian. And I love Jesus. He's my first love. And because he's Jewish, I love his brethren after the flesh. And they formed this nation of Israel that is surrounded tonight by enemies. She's mentioned, again, 2,300 times almost. Jerusalem's mentioned 767 times in the Bible. We're not mentioned once. That means, and that tells me that our future is in the balance. Like our future can go one way or the other. Israel's future is set. Israel's future, you can read exactly what's going to happen to Israel now, going forward into her future, and into her ultimate restoration, her ultimate judgment, her ultimate betrayal by the Antichrist, her ultimate deception, but her ultimate salvation at the end of the Great Tribulation period. It's all recorded in God's Word. None of that is recorded about our nation. Nothing is recorded about us. Nothing. All these other nations that Trump is being lauded for bringing peace to, as wonderful as that is, ultimately they're not mentioned in Bible prophecy. It doesn't ultimately matter whether they're at peace. The only silver lining with the peace is the gospel. If these nations, by having peace, open up the gospel to the Christian world, then we can say there is some good that can come from this. But let me tell you this. Most of these nations would kill you in a heartbeat if you brought a Bible into them, even though they're at peace with their neighbor. It's not changed the culture. It's not changed the culture and the anti-Christianity spirit of the nation, to my knowledge, unless I'm missing something here. But our future is tied to our support of that nation on the right, on that flag right there, folks. Now, you don't have to believe that tonight. Most don't. Most don't. But I believe it does. And I believe Israel has always been the dividing line, just as the cross is the dividing line between the apostate church and the true church. Our handling of Israel is the dividing line between the sheep and the goats of Matthew 25. And we can either be a sheep nation and go into everlasting life at the end of the tribulation period, if we're even here, or we can become a goat nation and suffer eternal judgment. Take that or leave it. Take that or not believe it. It's up to you. But that's how I feel, and I think that's how the Word of God says it. That's how I see it in God's Word. God bless you. God bless your families. I want you to have a wonderful Thursday night. Enjoy your late night without me. I may start missing you and come back. If I do, it'll be around 11 o'clock, 11:30. May even do a midnight special. I'm going to watch the news. If there's anything that I see that's needed to come back to talk about, I'll come back. As of right now, I don't see anything changing overnight unless something major happens. I'll see you back here tomorrow. We will be here tomorrow morning. We'll probably have a Facebook Live around 3. We did one today. We'll probably do another one tomorrow, and then we'll be back here tomorrow night with Gideon Ariel. You'll enjoy him. It was not a long interview. We didn't have time. He said he'd been going 9.5, 10 hours all day, and he was so gracious to just give us 20 minutes of his time before he was so tired. You could tell he was tired in the video. But he gave us some insight that I think you'll enjoy tomorrow night, and we'll play that for you then. Okay? Are you grateful you've been with us tonight? Say amen, somebody. I'm grateful you've been with us tonight, and I will see you back here tomorrow. The Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. Much love tonight. Our prayers for Israel, our prayers for Jerusalem, we pray for the peace of Jerusalem and the soon return of our Lord Jesus Christ. Until tomorrow night and tomorrow morning. Chris McDonald out on this Thursday. Have a good night, everybody. Be blessed out there, and may the Lord bless you. Be safe and love each other and take care of each other. And let me find my music to get out of here so I can Get out of here. There we go. Well, nope, wrong one. Hang on just a second. Oh, I need a producer. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. Have a good night, everybody.